This is my week 9 reflections, jumping in on questions. In your opinion, how much and in what ways should the digital age inform and shape the preaching of the gospel? As this week's reading suggests, the digital age has started to influence everyone in one way or the other. Most of the human population now has access to some form of digital communication technology, like smartphones are very common nowadays, even among the elderly, and the technical literacy is only increasing. So, in that background, I think it's my opinion that it's only prudent to use those virtual media to proclaim the gospel. It was interesting to read about how Luther used the printing press and his social networks to propagate his ideas and eventually Reformation. Also, we read about evangelicals using the media like radio and television to reach vast audiences around the world, starting with the 1920s. So I think it's prudent not to not only just concentrating on the negatives and criticizing the negatives. I think we should start to see the positives of the digital age so that it can be used as a channel for preaching the gospel in such a time as this. It also means that we will need to adapt our preaching to suit the digital age, and especially how it operates and received by the people, especially the young ones. What do you perceive as the opportunities or advantages of sharing the gospel in a digital age? For example, online, live streamed audios, sermons, podcasts, blogs, discussion forums, TikTok, etc. Again, as technology is becoming more and more accessible to everyone, the opportunities to use it for proclaiming the gospel is also increasing. Though it doesn't replace the traditional Sunday morning in-person service, online or live streamed worship and sermons are a blessing for people who are unable to attend, like the elderly, for example, or the ones who are hospitalized, or even the ones who are traveling. So it is a time when the church reaches them when they cannot physically reach the church. When sermons are shared on YouTube or similar platforms, one can go there later to watch according to one's own ability. This helps people like who work shifts or unable to attend a particular church on a particular Sunday. This also provides an opportunity to go back to a favorite sermon, for example, or a favorite topic one is interested in to learn more and experience the guidance of the Holy Spirit in and through that sermon that may have already happened. Podcasts and other audio content online are helpful, especially when one is driving or cooking, or it can be a time of encouragement or learning scriptural principles through that. Blogs and discussion forums can also be platforms that can become fruitful if done with proper content. I have not used TikTok, but as per one of the readings this week, the author says that it can be positively used to guide people to Christ. I think all of these platforms have advantages and probably some disadvantages, but if done properly, without trying to propagate wrong teachings or ideas, I think it's all beneficial for the gospel, for the proclamation of the gospel. What do you perceive as the challenges or disadvantages of sharing the gospel in a digital age? That is, again, the online or live stream sermons, podcasts, blogs, discussion forums, TikTok, etc. Digital resources are available for all, for everyone to use. So there seems to be an issue of proper control of its usage. This may mean that it could also be used to spread wrong teachings or wrong theological concepts regarding the gospel. So it is still important to emphasize the need of an in-person community of believers and being connected to such a community. I think it is very important. Um, if online and digital resources are then used as an extension of that community, then the issues of wrong preaching, etc., can be at least minimized or controlled in one way or the other. All types of media may not be appropriate for all and may not work for all. Certain platforms like TikTok may only work with certain age group, and hence the content may need to be developed keeping in such audience in mind. There's always a risk of losing interest in meeting in person as a result of excessive digital preaching and worship, which may already there online. So there is also a risk of people trying to find the best preacher and gem churches as a result. A decline of smaller and medium-sized congregations can also result from such a situation. One other thing which I found is smaller churches may not be able to afford the cost of equipment needed for making a proper online presence, like expensive cameras or equipment needed for such things. So these are, I believe, some of the real challenges out there. From your context as either a preacher or a recipient of virtual worship services, what has been effective or worked well in preaching? Talking from my own experience during COVID, our immigrant congregation started to use the Zoom software for our services. Here, as for example, in this part of Canada, for many, many months, the in-person meetings were banned by the government. So as our community was smaller in size, Zoom actually helped us to interact with each other and especially use the breakout room function in that particular software. After our formal meeting, we gathered for prayer in small groups in that using that setup. So because of that, we could have two-way communication, and that helped a lot during those times. However, our parent church, the bigger church, used the live YouTube streaming during those times as their numbers were much higher. To effectively manage it through the Zoom software was almost impossible. So though people could watch it, what was going on, the two-way communication was actually lacking in such a setup. But using Zoom, the preacher was able to see the attendees and hence had a feeling of preaching to real people and not a blank wall. But however, the lack of professional equipment provided less clarity, a sound, or sometimes even breaking of the connection, etc., was always there. But as the parent church has had a professional setup with proper cameras and equipment, the sermons were clear and clearly audible, and so that's received. It was received well by all of them, all of the people who watched it. So there were advantages and disadvantages for both in my own experience. Last question here, is there anything you perceive we can learn and benefit from in terms of the presentation and delivery of other digital content? For example, TED Talks that might enhance the preaching of the gospel in the 21st century. I really like the idea of TED Talks. That seems to be becoming very popular, where people share their insights and stories in interesting ways. As per one of our reading also this week suggests, TED speakers blend their life experiences and stories and present them in a very meaningful and an embodied manner, calling for action from the listeners, or simply instilling a hope in the listener's mind. So there may be elements that we can learn from these people and their presentations to effectively proclaim the gospel digitally. We may also learn from how people use blogs to popularize ideas or products, for example. There may also be simple things like color and proper aesthetics and a setting, etc., that can enhance the message of the gospel and make it reach more people. However, there's always a danger when we talk about online presentations that may turn to be focusing people's attention on a particular person or a church rather than focusing on the Lord and the gospel. So I think it is very, very important, and we need to be extremely careful so that it is the gospel that gets the highlight and it is Christ who gets all the glory. Thank you. Thank you for listening.